Welcome to Live, Laugh, Launch, the go-to-market podcast for everyone who brings products to life. I'm Katie Moss, and whether you're leading strategy, building campaigns, designing experiences, or figuring out how all the pieces fit together, this show is for you. We explore every angle of go-to-market success, from the big picture thinking to the nitty-gritty execution. Each episode dives into what really works, what doesn't, and how cross-functional teams collaborate to turn ideas into market wins. If you're in marketing, building a startup, or just fascinated by how great products find their audience, you're in the right place. Let's launch into it. Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of Live, Laugh, Launch. Today we have with us Tallie Merritt, and Tallie is president of FSC Interactive, a digital marketing agency founded in 2009 here in New Orleans. As president, Tallie was most recently named Woman of the Year by City Business in 2024, and she has also led her company to be named Best New Orleans Business Empowering Women in 2024 and 2025. Tallie has worked in digital advertising since she graduated from the University of Alabama in 2004. Previously, as FSC's Interactive Director of Search, Tallie specialized in creating targeted interactive campaigns with a focus on search, both paid and organic, and website conversion optimization. Successfully growing clients' revenue from online sources was her biggest focus. Welcome, Tallie. Super excited to have you here and excited to have someone local to New Orleans.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk about SEO and paid tactics. It's like, that's my jam.
Yes. And SEO and paid are such a big part of go-to-market, obviously. So I'm excited to give some folks some tips today. So I'd love to hear just a little bit more about your agency, if you want to share.
Absolutely. So FSC first started as basically a paid search company in 2009. And that was really at the very beginning of digital advertising, right? I mean, really, those products launched in like 2007. So it was really at the start of it. And we were the first agency in New Orleans offering those kinds of services. And then we added SEO and then paid social as that came on, and organic social. We do a lot of email marketing, but really like we focus on who needs to grow their business through the internet. Like if your clients are online searching for companies like yours, then we can help you get in front of them.
Yeah, super important, obviously, and not always easy to do if you don't have the knowledge and the skills to do so. So awesome. So when you are helping a client launch something new, how do you actually use paid ads and SEO as market entry tools to test messaging, validate their ICPs or signal demand?
Okay, so there's so much here. First, I think SEO should always be the foundation of everything you do, right? Ideally, if you're creating a new product, if you are creating a new company, hopefully you're an expert in this topic, right? And while I understand as a business owner, we all wear so many hats, but if you can carve out and be consistent in spending 2 hours a month to create content that doesn't have to be, crazy insightful, but just answers basic questions that your end user is going to ask when trying to decide if they want to buy your product or use your product, right? Try to build out that content as your foundation at the beginning, both on-site and off-site, because that will pay dividends 3 years down the road more than any search, right? So you're saving your company so much money by investing in SEO on the upfront, right? And just being an expert in who you are. So I think that's just what I always tell everybody, just to start.
And by off-site, do you mean like on social media, like on review sites, thought leadership industry sites?
Yes. Okay. I think it really depends on what your product is and where your end users spend their time. So if you're a SaaS company in the B2B space, then LinkedIn Pulse makes the most sense, right? And I know it can feel like a crowded space, but remember, when you're starting, you're doing it to put the content out there because of the way LinkedIn Pulse articles rank in organic search results, right? So that's what we're thinking about. Another sort of idea is like if there is a Reddit sub community that is focused on your industry specifically that is active, being a part of that community, answering questions, becoming a voice in that community. Because again, all of that content is also showing up in search engines. And then I would say, there's other places you can go to sort of get free paid placements like medium.com or forbes.com. And so really thinking, okay, where is my end user spending time? And one of the things I often tell founders is don't try to be everywhere for everyone. Really think about your ideal consumer and where they spend the most time. Pick 2 tactics that you can consistently follow through on and go heavy in those, right? And so I think you really have to think to yourself, is my user going to read a Medium article, or are they on Reddit, or is LinkedIn really my best shot?
Yeah. And I think so when you're early on, you may still be trying to figure out that audience. So maybe you want to test a few different things and see like where you get traction.
But I will say again, those efforts I'm talking about are mostly to show up in search engines for free, right? Because every dollar has to be 5.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, every, time is money too. So founders and folks launching things want to get their time and money's worth. So content has been king since I entered marketing 15 years ago, and it still is. It looks a little different, but it's still super important.
It is. We can talk about how AI is going to change all of this, but I will tell you what we're finding, just sort of on the upfront, is that AI content is so uninteresting, like by and large. And so there's still so much opportunity for true expert voices about topics, right? Okay, so let's flip to the paid side real quick, because so now I'm creating 1 to 2 pieces of content a month that are truly helpful to the end user about our product, the industry, the sector, et cetera, right? Now, to test that messaging, to test who our audience is, we can really cost effectively use display advertising to advertise that piece of content specifically. And that's where you're getting, cost per clicks for like 15, 30 cents. So it's just absolutely worth it because you're all of a sudden driving traffic to your site for those pieces of content. Now, are those people going to convert today? No, they are so far down the pipeline, right? They are at the very top of the funnel. But all of a sudden you're getting brand awareness, you're getting people to your website, right? You're starting to trigger those things that need to happen for your business to start to have a pipeline from digital marketing, right? And so we find that's really nice because then you can start to test, okay, headlines about the piece of content, test 2 different pieces of content against themselves, see which ones get the best click-through rate, which ones people are more interested in, right? And then you start to learn a little bit more about your audience based on how the different pieces of content perform. And then even taking it a step further. So, okay, I saw this piece of content as an ad. I found it interesting. I clicked through. And now I'm on your website. Did I go to any other pages or did I just read that page and bounce, right? And that will all tell you information about the interest level of your end user. But here's 2 other tactics I think are important in that paid space in the very beginning. So I always like to run a really, really low budget brand campaign where we're actually advertising on the brand name. And when I say low budget, I mean like a couple dollars a day kind of situation. And the reason why is because that is going to be a key performance indicator that you can track across the first 2 years of how many brand searches are we getting over time to understand the impact of all the other work. So when I say low budget, I mean like the lowest budget possible that you can do, but your brand name is your cheapest click. And so I think that that's a nice way to track the increase in brand awareness for your brand. And then the last piece I say is I think it's good to test a non-brand campaign on just the product so that you can start to get a lot of data about how people are searching for your product, what keywords they're looking for, where they live. Because, I know Google's like, well, we have these tools that will tell you this information, but we find that information like the keyword planner tool and all of those are radically inaccurate and not helpful. And so we find that if you run a product keyword campaign without the brand name in it, you can pretty quickly get some really good data points that allow you to plan in the future and then turn that off, right? Like, but it's important to sort of understand the landscape from that perspective to understand, okay, if I'm spending, let's say $1,000 this month on this campaign, what is my search impression share? Meaning, out of every time someone searches this, how often am I showing up? And that's going to really give you an idea of how much volume is being searched for that product name. And then you really have an understanding of what's the capacity currently, right? Because we've worked with startups where they were like, we had to create this capacity because nobody knows this. We're the first product like this. No one's asked for this, but it will revolutionize their world. So in that case, it's different because you actually have to create the capacity. It doesn't exist already. But if you're entering a market space where the product already exists, you can really get to understand how much capacity, how many people are actually looking for this product in a single month.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to do some early product market fit research. You mentioned like Google, other tools, maybe not always being super helpful. Do you use like SEMrush or other tools?
We do.
In your tool belt?
Yeah. So don't get me wrong. Search Console is great. There's lots of information there that is helpful. We use SEMrush, definitely. That is a mandatory. And then frankly, we're Google Analytics experts, right? Everybody on my team has to know how to use Google Analytics inside and out. And especially with GA4, the current version, we've really had to like retrain all of our clients on how to look at data because the way they're tracking people differently. So really just like for us, the website is the all roads lead to the website, and Google Analytics is our one source of truth.
When you are promoting content on a YouTube or LinkedIn or something, and obviously that's higher up in the funnel, so that's more brand awareness rather than lead generation, although there are some exceptions.
Yeah.
So how do you balance sort of that long tail? I won't use that word because that has implications. How do you balance that long-term strategy in SEO versus kind of a shorter, like a paid ads type strategy that you expect to get those clicks more immediately?
That's really hard, right? I mean, I'll be honest. I think the struggle between an agency like mine and the in-house team, you spend a lot of your time on is, we're always wanting to focus on the brand building, right? And feel like every dollar spent towards like lead generation is, you need $100 for lead generation for every dollar for brand building, right? And so your brand building dollars go so much further and create such sort of better, healthier pipelines, right? And so that's just a real struggle. And, that's where we want to work really closely with the sales team. And by really closely, I mean like the marketers need to be talking to the sales team regularly because they're getting trickles of calls, right? And so it's like, what are those conversations like? Anytime a marketer can listen to those conversations and hear what all the pain points of that end user are, and then try to infuse all of that into that lead generation pipeline. And so, okay, ideal world, you've got your content stream that's coming out, right? And that is valuable. And then you're putting a little bit of money to promote that content. So you're driving website traffic, right? So now, okay, your wheels spinning. You have people actually come to your site who are learning about you. And so it's like, once you feel like you've got that happening, then it's like, I think you really add on this like lead gen side. And tell me if I misunderstood your question. That's really what you're talking about, right? It's like when do you really push?
Yeah, totally. Like where do they both fit? Where is the SEO piece? Where is, the paid search piece, and kind of how do you balance that? But you have a really interesting answer about, your brand dollars going further. I think the struggle for every marketer or every marketing team is always like, how do we, show that attribution behind that brand spend? How do we tie things back to that brand spend? But I think in this case, it's actually a little bit easier because you can actually track it all the way through the funnel versus like, I don't know, a podcast, for example. If your CEO has a podcast, it can be harder to like track attribution back to that brand awareness, right? Like just because they're probably watching a ton, they're reading content, they're doing something else, they're finally signing up. There's a million different places. But when it starts with the search, maybe a little bit easier to track.
Yeah, one thing I'll tell you that I think is amazing, and your salespeople always sort of agree with this, is that a lead that comes in that's listened to your podcast and read your content is a lot easier to sell than a cold lead, right?
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
So that lead's not going to say, I called because I listened to your podcast. But that conversation is going to be a smarter, better conversation because you've already proved your expertise, right? Because the other thing that I think we talk a lot about with our clients that's really hard is what is the product cost? And based on that, what is a reasonable cost per lead?
Yeah.
So I have people all the time come to me and be like, my product's $30,000 a year and I want to lead for $50 a pop. And you're like, yes, but I am not a magician and I cannot make a $50 lead turned into a $30,000 revenue stream, yearly.
Right.
And so that's a real place of like, what is the value of your product and understanding that the cost per lead is going to be relative to that. And the amount of time you have to touch that person through marketing is going to matter based on the product cost.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. So how do you use keyword research and paid campaigns as kind of a voice of the customer stand-in? Like, how do you use them to validate the messages, the pain points, differentiators in the market for that company you're working with?
Yeah. So, this is where, so there's a lot of things that Google does lately that really just frustrates the heck out of my team, right? They think they're smarter and then they do terrible things. And our clients are like, why does it look this way? And we're like, we have no control over that. I'm so sorry Google did that to your brand, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But
I liked the old GA personally, so I can.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. GA4 is so frustrating. Okay. But I think getting to the question at hand, they have a lot more A/B testing tools than they used to. And I think you have to utilize those, right? So things that we're trying right now is creating asset groups that speak to different ICPs, putting them in the same campaign and seeing which ones perform better, right? So that's a really quick way within a couple of months to understand what messaging resonates with your ideal consumer the most, right? Keyword research, like I said, I think keyword research using the keyword planner tool in Google is something you have to do, but you have to sort of take their numbers with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
I actually think a really great thing to do is actually just do the searches yourself and see who shows up and what content is showing up there, right? Some really easy wins we found it's pretty easy to show up in AI overviews, which is like that net new like AI part at the top of Google search for things by looking at what's in there right now and then just writing better content. I know SEO people have been saying that forever, but for the AI overviews, it is actually like not that hard. And so that's easy wins, right? I will also say, because most people don't know this, you can actually place ads in those AI overviews and they're not really clear that they're ads, but that's another sort of easy way to sort of get to the top and understand what are people searching, what's coming up, what are the answers that people need, and how can I place myself above there?
Yeah.
And so we're even doing keyword research now in like ChatGPT's perplexities, the LLMs, to see what comes up there, because what's so different is when you're trying to show up in a search engine, it's like who has the best content, who answers the most questions, etc. When you're trying to show up in an LLM like Perplexity and ChatGPT, it's actually like pattern recognition, having the exact keywords in the right exact order of what someone is physically searching. And so going in there and doing these searches that your consumers are going to do and seeing what shows up, and then based on what shows up, changing your content to match that, and then you're more likely to show up the next time. Does that?
Yeah. I want to dig into that a little bit too. Like the AI summaries, obviously they're a newer thing in Google. There used to be like snippets before where you could rise to the top, right? But it seems like it could be harder than ever to get like those clicks from organic traffic if you're not at like the very top, or people just read the summary and they get the answer that they need,
Yes.
right? So like, I think at least my SEO person I work with primarily like we've seen like some changes in traffic, but we've seen some increases on the AI LLM side of things, but less on like the organic click through lower down on the page.
Yeah, you're exactly right. So click-through rates are going down, right? Because of that.
Mm-hmm.
But I would push back and say, when we're talking about a product that someone has to purchase that is going to help their business operate better, or whatever kind of product we're selling, that product, you're going to need more than a snippet from an AI overview to decide whether to buy it or not. So those people who got the snippet and didn't click through, they probably weren't buying anyway, right? Because the people who are buying, think about when you're actually looking to purchase, whether it's a software or just any kind of product. You know, it used to be people would look at 9 different companies. Now we're down to people look at 3 because they do so much of their own research online. And that research is going to your website and reading your content and reading reviews about you and doing all these different searches. So yes, in the grand scheme of things, we're all losing more traffic to the AI overviews. But if we're truly selling something that is of value, people are going to have to come to your website and learn more.
Yeah, totally makes sense. What else have you seen change with AI? Like, are you finding clients want you to track, well, everything, obviously, but have you seen that clients want you to track their, how much they're showing up in those LLMs?
Yes. So we are definitely tracking LLM traffic across all our clients, right? And, like one of our clients really cares greatly about LLMs, and we figured out his Cloudflare was blocking the LLMs from going to a site, right? So that was like the first thing we had to do is like, so you have to unblock all of these and then you can come to your site and then you're more likely to be showing up. Right. So I think that's definitely a priority, but one of the things we talk about a lot at FSC, and I would encourage everybody to think about, is who is your audience and where are they spending their time and how are they going to look for you? So one of the things we're very aware is people are going to the ChatGPTs and the Perplexities for searches they used to use in Google, right?
Yeah.
Of all ages,
Same.
right? Like my 60-year-old brother-in-law was at my house and he does it, but like also my 22-year-old cousin does it, right? Like everybody. But I would push back to say, so he works for a tech company. He does that in his daily life. If he's looking to buy a product for his company in a professional capacity, he's going to likely end up on Google because ChatGPT is only going to take him so far in the content before he has to dive deep.
Yeah.
So who's your user and what do they need your product for? And what is that path to them finding you?
Absolutely. Awesome. Can you share an example where ad data changed a client's go-to-market strategy or even how they position their product?
Yeah. I mean, I think so. As I said in sort of the beginning of this conversation, we believe in using ad dollars to promote pieces of content to understand what the end user values and what they find interesting and helpful and useful, right? And so we have seen time and time again where the client will think like this feature is the most important feature that the end user wants, but the piece of content that talks to that pain point, no one cares about. No one's clicking on, the time on site's really low. Whereas at the same time, because we'll have like 4 of these running together, something else that they didn't think that was that important, but it was just a piece of content that got created is very interesting. And so that's when you can really go and say, okay, wait, hold on. Like we thought our clients cared about this, but really it's this piece of our software or product that they care about. And that really gives you information to then switch your language on your landing page to highlight that pain point.
Well, thank you again so much for joining. And I look forward to seeing you at a tech meetup soon here in New Orleans. So awesome. Thank you, Tallie. And I'll talk to you later. Thanks, everyone. Bye.